Our/AITA roommate brought strangers home, so I made them pay for everything. AITA for charging my roommates hookups and random friends to stay at our apartment. I'm typing this at 3 a.m. from my car because there are currently 4 strangers passed out in my living room, and I've officially hit my breaking point. Let me back up. My roommate Jake, 23M, and I, 23F, have been living together for 2 years. We met freshman year, became best friends, and got this decent 2-bedroom apartment near campus last fall. Everything was great until about 3 months ago when Jake apparently decided our place was the new party headquarters for every random person he meets on Tinder or at bars. It started small. Hey, Sarah's going to crash on the couch tonight, cool. Sure, whatever. Then it became Sarah and her friend Madison. Then it was some guy named Trevor who Jake met at a party and really needed a place to stay for a few days. Those few days turned into a week and a half of this complete stranger eating my food, using my Netflix account, and leaving wet towels everywhere. I tried talking to Jake multiple times. Dude, I didn't sign up to live with random people. Can you at least give me a heads up? He'd apologize, say he understood, and then literally the next weekend bring home 3 people from some house party without texting me at all. But here's what really pushed me over the edge. Last week I overheard Jake on the phone basically advertising our place like it's a free hostel. Yeah man, you can totally crash here whenever. My roommate's cool with it. We've got snacks, fast Wi-Fi, Netflix, the works. Don't worry about bringing anything. Excuse me. I'm cool with it. I'm the one buying most of the groceries that these randos demolish. I'm the one whose bathroom gets destroyed by people I've never met. I'm the one who can't walk to the kitchen in my own pajamas because there might be some stranger from Bumble making coffee. So tonight was the final straw. I came home from studying at the library to find Jake hosting an impromptu hang session with 4 people I'd never seen before. They'd ordered pizza on my Uber Eats account, apparently Jake gave them my login, were using my expensive shampoo, and had completely taken over the living room with their stuff everywhere. Jake was like, oh hey. Everyone, this is my roommate. She's totally fine with you guys staying over. I smiled real sweet and said, absolutely. That'll be $25 per person for the night, plus $15 for the pizza you already ordered on my account, $5 each for bathroom amenities, and $10 per person if you're planning to eat any of the food in the fridge. Cash or Venmo works. You should have seen their faces. One girl literally said, wait, we have to pay to sleep on the floor. Well, this isn't a hotel, but you're treating it like one, so. I shrugged. Jake pulled me aside and started freaking out. What the hell are you doing? You're embarrassing me. I told him he's been embarrassing me for months by turning our home into a flop house without my consent. He said I was being ridiculous and that friends help friends. Cool, I said. Then your friends can help with the bills, groceries, and utilities they're using. 2 of them actually paid me and left. The other 2 are still here arguing with Jake about it, which is why I'm currently sitting in my Honda Civic wondering if I just nuked my longest friendship. But honestly, I'm so tired of feeling uncomfortable in the place I pay half the rent for. So Reddit, AITA. Update, it gets worse. Okay, so I thought last night was bad. I was wrong. So wrong. I ended up sleeping in my car for about 4 hours before giving up and going to a 24-hour diner. When I came back around 8 a.m. with coffee and what I thought was a reasonable plan to have an adult conversation with Jake, I walked into what can only be described as a disaster movie. The 2 people who stayed. Apparently they invited more people over. At 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, there were now 6 strangers in my apartment. One was making eggs with my groceries, another was in my bathroom doing a full skincare routine with products that cost me $40 each, and someone had the audacity to be taking a Zoom call for what sounded like a job interview from our kitchen table. Jake was nowhere to be found. His bedroom door was locked and when I knocked, some girl I'd never seen before answered wearing his hoodie. Jake's in the shower, she said, like this was totally normal. Are you the roommate who charges people? That's so weird. I cannot even express the level of rage that shot through my body. But wait, it gets better. I went to grab my phone charger from the living room and found one of the overnight guests, a guy who definitely didn't pay me last night, live streaming on what looked like Instagram or TikTok. He was literally giving people a tour of our apartment, saying stuff like, yeah, we found this sick crash pad near campus. The girl who lives here is kind of a bitch about money, but if you can avoid her it's basically free. I walked directly into his camera frame. Hi Instagram. Just so everyone knows, this crash pad is a private residence and this person is here illegally without the consent of half the leaseholders. Also, you still owe me $40, Derek. It's Derek, he said. I don't care if it's fucking Beethoven, you owe me money. He ended the stream real quick after that. When Jake finally emerged from his shower, 45 minutes later, again, my water bill, he had the nerve to be angry at me. Apparently word had already gotten back to him about my little cameo in Derek's livestream. You're making me look like an asshole to everyone, he said. These are good people going through tough times. Jake, that guy was literally advertising our address to strangers on the internet. You're being paranoid. Paranoid? I showed him the screen recording I'd made of the live stream. You could see our apartment number, our building, even the view from our window. Jake's face went white. Okay, that's not great, he admitted. But you didn't have to embarrass him. This is when I completely lost it. Get everyone out. Now. Or I'm calling the police and telling them there are trespassers in my apartment who've been here without my knowledge or consent. You can't do that. Watch me. I have every right to feel safe in my own home, and right now I have random strangers broadcasting our location to the internet. What if some creep decides to show up here when I'm alone? I think that finally got through to him because he started asking people to leave. But here's the kicker, 3 of them had the audacity to ask me for money for an Uber since they were being kicked out unfairly. I laughed so hard I think I pulled something. The apartment is finally empty now, but Jake isn't speaking to me and I have a feeling this is far from over. Apparently I'm the villain in this story. Still can't figure out how wanting basic respect in my own home makes me the bad guy here. Update 2, the Venmo requests are rolling in. I thought Jake giving me the silent treatment was going to be the worst part of my day. Boy, was I wrong. It's now Wednesday evening, and apparently my little payment system has become campus legend. My Venmo has been blowing up nonstop with the most ridiculous requests I've ever seen. Some girl named Brittany sent me a request for $15 with the note, emotional damages from hostile living environment. Another one from someone called Mike_Party_King asking for $30 because your roommate said everything was free and that's false advertising. But the absolute best one. Derek requesting $50 for lost followers due to stream interruption and reputation damage. I'm not even kidding. He included a screenshot showing he apparently lost 23 followers after I crashed his little apartment tour. I responded to that one, counteroffer, $200 for using my home as content without permission. Also it's called trespassing. He hasn't replied. The situation with Jake has somehow gotten worse. He's not just giving me silent treatment anymore, he's actively sabotaging me. This morning I woke up to find he changed the Wi-Fi password and didn't tell me what it was. When I asked, he just shrugged and said, "Oh, I figured since you're charging everyone for utilities, you'd want your own internet plan." Petty. Absolutely. But I can play that game too. I came home this afternoon to find he'd apparently given a new Wi-Fi password to a study group, 3 people I'd never met who were camped out at our kitchen table with their laptops and notebooks spread everywhere. They looked up when I walked in like deer in headlights. Jake said it was cool if we worked here today, one of them said. We're not staying overnight or anything. I smiled my sweetest smile. Of course. Day use is $10 per person, and since you're using the kitchen table and chairs, that's an additional $5 facilities fee. The good lighting by the window is premium seating though, so that's $15 total each. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. You're using my electricity, my furniture, my space, and apparently my internet that I can't even access. Jake didn't mention this was a co-working space when we signed the lease. They packed up and left within 10 minutes, grumbling about how weird I was being. One of them actually said I had control issues on their way out. Control issues? I'm trying to control who lives in my apartment. That seems pretty reasonable to me. But here's where it gets really interesting. About an hour after Jake's study group left, I got a text from someone named Amanda. "Hey. I'm Jake's friend from his marketing class. He told me about your roommate situation and honestly, I think what you're doing is genius. My roommate has been pulling similar shit and I'm totally stealing your charging system. Can you send me your Venmo template?" Finally, someone with sense. Then I got another text from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this the girl charging for apartment access? My roommate saw your story on someone's TikTok and we're dealing with the same problem. How did you decide on your rates?" Wait, what TikTok? Turns out Derek posted another video, this time explaining what happened after his live stream got hijacked by a crazy roommate. The video is called "When Your Free Crash Pad Isn't Actually Free," and it has like 50,000 views already. I'm apparently TikTok famous now as that psycho roommate who charges for everything. The comments are a mix of people calling me insane and others saying I'm a hero for standing up for myself. Jake still won't talk to me, but I noticed he's been showing the video to people. I think he's enjoying his 15 minutes of fame as the victim in this whole mess. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to figure out how to get internet access in my own apartment. This is so far from over. Update 3, Jake's revenge tour and my new side hustle. It's Friday now, and Jake has officially declared war. I'm writing this from the campus library because my own apartment has become uninhabitable, not because of random strangers this time, but because my roommate has apparently decided to make my life a living hell. Wednesday night, he invited his entire intramural soccer team over for team bonding. 12 sweaty guys packed into our living room, ordering food, playing music until 2 a.m., and using every single dish we own. When I emerged from my room to ask them to keep it down because I had an exam the next morning, Jake announced loudly, "Oh hey everyone, this is my roommate Sarah. Just so you know, she charges people for being here, so make sure you hide your wallets." The whole room erupted in laughter. Someone yelled, "How much for breathing the air?" Another guy goes, "I'll pay extra for premium oxygen." I've never felt so humiliated in my own home. But Jake wasn't done. Yesterday morning I woke up to find a literal sign taped to our front door: "Sarah's bed and breakfast, $25 per night, $15 food fee, $5 bathroom privileges. Cash only, with little tear-off tabs at the bottom containing our apartment number." I ripped it down immediately, but apparently several people had already taken photos. My phone started buzzing with texts from classmates asking if I was really running an illegal hostel business. That's when I realized Jake was trying to get me in trouble with our landlord. Sure enough, around noon I got a call from the property management company asking about commercial activity in our unit. I had to spend 45 minutes on the phone explaining that no, I'm not running a business, I was just trying to get people to stop treating our apartment like a free hotel. The property manager was actually pretty understanding once I explained everything, but she warned me that if there are any more noise complaints or reports of excessive occupancy, we could both face eviction. Jake, of course, was nowhere to be found during this phone call. But here's the plot twist: Jake's little revenge campaign might have actually backfired on him. Remember that TikTok Derek made? It's gone completely viral. I'm talking 500k views and climbing. But the comments have shifted dramatically. Instead of calling me crazy, people are sharing their own roommate horror stories and actually asking for advice on how to handle similar situations. I've gotten dozens of DMs from college students dealing with inconsiderate roommates who want to know my rate structure and how I enforce payments. Someone even made a parody video called "Setting Boundaries," a pricing guide that has my system broken down like a legitimate business model. The comments are full of people saying things like, "Honestly, this girl is a genius," and "Why should you subsidize other people's social lives?" So I did something that might be completely insane. I created an actual price list and posted it in our apartment. Not as a joke, but as a real policy. Guest policy and fees asterisk. Overnight stays, $25 per person, must be approved 24 hours in advance. Kitchen use, $10 per day. Bathroom amenities, $5 per person. Wi-Fi access, $15 per day. Food from fridge/pantry, $20 per day. Laundry facilities, $10 per load. Creating content featuring the apartment, $100 licensing fee. Bringing guests without roommate approval, $50 fine per person. I laminated it and everything. Jake found it when he came home last night and absolutely exploded. You can't charge my friends to be here. This is my apartment too. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you started letting strangers broadcast our address on the internet, I replied calmly. This is insane. You're insane. No, Jake, what's insane is me sleeping in my car because you can't respect basic boundaries. He stormed off to his room, but not before yelling, fine. If you want to play hardball, we'll play hardball. I have no idea what that means, but honestly. Bring it on. I'm tired of being the pushover in this situation. The weirdest part. 3 people have already Venmo'd me asking to reserve overnight slots for next weekend. I think I accidentally created a real business. Update 4, Jake's nuclear option and my unexpected allies. Saturday morning. I woke up to what sounded like a construction crew in my living room, which would be weird enough on its own, but it was 7 a.m. and Jake isn't exactly an early bird. I stumbled out of my room to find Jake with 2 guys I didn't recognize setting up what looked like a professional gaming setup, multiple monitors, fancy chairs, ring lights, the works. They had pushed all our furniture against the walls and were running extension cords everywhere. What the hell is this? I asked. Jake didn't even look up from assembling some complicated-looking desk. Oh hey, morning. Meet Tyler and Connor. They're moving in. I'm sorry, what? They're streamers, Jake continued like this was totally normal. They needed a place to set up their equipment and I figured since you're so into charging people, you'd appreciate some actual paying tenants. They're going to give me $400 a month to use the living room as their streaming space. I stared at him. Jake, you can't just move people into our apartment without discussing it with me first. We have a lease agreement. Tyler, a skinny guy with purple hair, looked up from his pile of cables. Chill, we're not technically living here. We're just working here. 12 hours a day. Every day. 12 hours a day. Look, Connor added, Jake showed us your little price list, and honestly. We respect the hustle. We'll pay your fees if we need to use the kitchen or whatever. This is just business. I turned to Jake. You cannot be serious right now. Dead serious. You wanted to treat our apartment like a business? Congratulations, now it's actually a business. He had this smug smile that made me want to scream. They're going to be streaming gaming content, maybe some podcasts. Really bring some life to this place. What about noise? What about internet bandwidth? What about the fact that I live here? They'll mostly stream at night when you're sleeping anyway, Jake said with a shrug. That's when Tyler helpfully added, yeah, we usually go from like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Peak viewing hours, you know. We might get a little loud during the really intense games, but you'll get used to it. I looked around at what used to be my living room and was now apparently becoming a 24/7 gaming studio. Absolutely not. Pack this up and get out. Actually, Connor said, pulling out his phone, we already paid Jake the security deposit and first month's rent. Plus we signed a subletting agreement. What subletting agreement? Jake can't sublet without my permission. But Jake was already showing me some official-looking document on his phone. I talked to the landlord yesterday. Since the living room is technically common space, I'm allowed to sublease it as long as it doesn't interfere with your bedroom access. I grabbed his phone and started reading. The document looked legitimate, but there was no way this was legal. This says they have access to the kitchen and bathroom too. Well yeah, they're human beings, Sarah. No. Absolutely not. I'm calling the landlord right now. Go ahead, Jake said. She already approved it. But here's where Jake made a crucial mistake. While I was reading his fake subletting agreement, I noticed Tyler setting up what was clearly a pretty expensive streaming setup. I'm talking thousands of dollars worth of equipment. So you guys are professional streamers? I asked innocently. Yeah, we make decent money at it, Connor said proudly. Tyler's got like 50k followers on Twitch. That's so cool. And you're planning to stream from here every night? Every single night, Tyler confirmed. This place is perfect, good lighting, solid internet, and now it's affordable thanks to Jake's deal. I smiled sweetly. Well, since this is going to be a professional streaming operation running out of my apartment, I should probably mention that commercial use of residential property requires special permits and licensing fees. Their faces went blank. Plus, since you'll be broadcasting from here regularly, that falls under my content creation fee, $100 per stream session. And if you're here 12 hours a day, that's definitely going to impact the utilities, so we'll need to recalculate the monthly rates. Jake's smug expression started to fade. Oh, and Tyler. With 50k followers, I'm sure you'll want to make sure all your business operations are properly documented for tax purposes. The IRS is really strict about undeclared income from unlicensed commercial activities in residential zones. Connor started unplugging cables. Wait, guys, she's just being dramatic, Jake started. But they were already packing up their stuff. Sometimes the best weapon is just knowing how to speak their language. Update 5, the landlord's surprise and Jake's meltdown. Sunday evening update, and holy shit, things just took a turn I didn't see coming. So after Tyler and Connor packed up their streaming equipment yesterday, Jake completely lost it. I'm talking full-on meltdown, throwing things, punching walls, the works. He screamed at me for sabotaging his income and ruining his life, which seemed a bit dramatic considering he'd known these guys for all of 3 days. But the real explosion happened when he called his dad to complain about me. See, Jake's parents help him with rent, which I only found out about 6 months ago, and apparently Daddy Dearest was not happy to hear about the apartment chaos. I was in my room when Jake's phone rang around noon today. At first it was just normal conversation, but then I heard Jake's voice get higher and more panicked. No, Dad, it's not like that. She's being completely unreasonable. What do you mean the landlord called you? Oh. Apparently our landlord, Mrs. Chen, had decided to do some fact-checking after Jake's supposed subletting approval yesterday. Turns out she never approved anything because, plot twist, Jake's dad is actually the one on the lease as a guarantor, and she's required to notify guarantors about any changes to tenancy agreements. When she called Jake's dad to confirm the commercial streaming setup, he had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. Jake's side of the phone conversation was painful to listen to. I can explain. No, I didn't forge anything, Sarah's been charging my friends money and... Dad, please don't. You don't understand the situation. This went on for about 20 minutes before Jake emerged from his room looking like he'd seen a ghost. His dad was apparently driving down here today to have what Jake kept calling a serious conversation about responsibility and lease violations. But wait, it gets better. Mrs. Chen showed up an hour before Jake's dad did, and she wanted to talk to both of us. Together. About the numerous complaints and concerning reports she'd been receiving about our unit. Sitting in our living room, which was still a disaster from the gaming equipment setup, she pulled out a folder that was surprisingly thick. I've received multiple noise complaints, reports of excessive occupancy, concerns about commercial activity, and now questions about unauthorized subletting, she said, looking between Jake and me. Can someone please explain what's been happening here? Jake immediately threw me under the bus. Sarah's been harassing my friends and making up crazy rules about charging people money just to visit. She's created this hostile environment where no one feels welcome. Mrs. Chen turned to me. Is this true? I took a deep breath and explained everything. The random strangers, the people using my accounts and eating my food, Jake advertising our place like a free hotel, the live streaming incident with our address being broadcast, the fake business sign, all of it. Mrs. Chen's expression got more serious with every detail. Mr. Rodriguez, she said to Jake, you understand that your lease agreement limits overnight guests to 3 nights per month without prior approval, correct? Jake's face went pale. And Miss Thompson, she turned to me, while I appreciate your frustration, you cannot charge people fees to access a rental property you don't own. My heart sank. I thought she was going to side with Jake. However, she continued, given the circumstances, I think we need to have a larger conversation about whether this living arrangement is working for anyone involved. That's when Jake's dad showed up, and let me tell you, this man was not happy. He took one look at our apartment, then at Jake, and I could practically see him calculating how much money he'd wasted on his son's college experience. Jacob. We need to talk. Now. Jake hasn't come out of his room since. I'm starting to think this might finally be over. Update 6, the family meeting from hell and my secret weapon. Monday night, and I'm currently hiding in the campus library again because my apartment has turned into an episode of Dr. Phil, except everyone's yelling and nobody's getting therapy. Jake's dad, let's call him Mr. Rodriguez, spent 3 hours yesterday grilling Jake about every single thing that's happened. I wasn't intentionally eavesdropping, but our walls are thin and this man has the voice of someone who's used to being obeyed. The conversation started with basic questions about the lease situation, but quickly devolved into what sounded like years of pent-up frustration about Jake's lack of responsibility and inability to respect other people's boundaries. At one point I heard Mr. Rodriguez say, so let me get this straight, your roommate was sleeping in her car because you decided to run an unauthorized hostel, and you think she's the problem. Jake's responses were mostly mumbling and defensive whining about how I was overreacting, and his friends really needed help. But then something interesting happened. Jake's dad asked to speak with me. I came out to find this tall, stern-looking man sitting at our kitchen table with a legal pad covered in notes. Jake was slouched in the corner looking like he wanted to disappear. Miss Thompson, Mr. Rodriguez said, I want to apologize for my son's behavior. What he's been doing is completely unacceptable, and frankly, I'm embarrassed that I've been financially supporting this circus. I wasn't sure how to respond, so I just said, thank you. However, I need to understand something. This charging system of yours, were you actually collecting money from these people? Oh. I suddenly realized this might be heading somewhere I didn't want it to go. Yes, sir. Some of them paid. How much money are we talking about? I did some quick mental math. Maybe like $200 total. Jake's dad made a note on his legal pad. And what did you do with this money? I used it to replace groceries and pay for the extra utilities from all the people staying here, I said honestly. He nodded thoughtfully. Jacob, do you see the problem here? Your roommate was forced to create a fee system because you were letting strangers use her resources without permission. But Dad. I'm not finished. Mr. Rodriguez's voice could have cut glass. Not only did you violate your lease agreement and disrespect your roommate, but you potentially exposed our family to liability issues. What if one of these strangers had gotten hurt in the apartment? What if they'd stolen something or damaged property? I hadn't even thought about the liability angle, but apparently Jake's dad is some kind of lawyer because he had a whole list of legal concerns I'd never considered. The meeting ended with Mr. Rodriguez telling Jake he had until Friday to figure out a plan to make this right, or his parents would stop helping with rent. I thought that would be the end of it, but oh no. Jake's response to his dad's ultimatum was to call his mother, who apparently decided she needed to come assess the situation for herself. She showed up this morning with enough luggage for a week-long stay and immediately started rearranging our entire apartment to optimize the living space. She's also been interviewing me like I'm applying to be her son's roommate, asking questions about my long-term living goals and whether I think Jake and I are compatible as cohabitants. But here's the kicker, while she was reorganizing our kitchen cabinets, she found something interesting. A notebook where Jake had been keeping track of everyone who'd stayed over, what they ate, what they used, even what streaming services they accessed. Jacob, she called out sweetly, why do you have a detailed log of your guests' activities if you thought this was all just normal friend visits? The look on Jake's face was priceless. Turns out my roommate knew exactly how much his friends were using and consuming. He'd been tracking it the whole time. Mrs. Rodriguez is now sitting at our kitchen table with Jake's secret notebook, my price list, and a calculator. This should be interesting. Update 7, Mom's audit reveals Jake's master plan. Tuesday afternoon, and I think I've discovered that my roommate might actually be a sociopathic genius. Mrs. Rodriguez spent all of yesterday evening with Jake's notebook, cross-referencing it with my price list and doing calculations that would make an accountant weep. The woman brought her own spreadsheet software on a tablet and everything. Around 10 p.m., she called Jake and me into the living room for what she termed a financial reconciliation meeting. She had papers spread across our coffee table like she was preparing to launch a hostile takeover. Jacob, she began, adjusting her reading glasses. According to your records, in the past 3 months you've hosted 47 different overnight guests for a total of 73 nights. Jake shifted uncomfortably. I mean, I wasn't really keeping track. But you were. She held up his notebook. You have detailed logs. Trevor stayed 11 nights and consumed approximately $43 worth of groceries. Sarah's friend Madison used $12 worth of bathroom products. Derek ordered $67 worth of food delivery on Sarah's accounts. My jaw hit the floor. He'd been tracking everything. You also noted, his mother continued, that Sarah pays for Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Premium, groceries, most cleaning supplies, and the premium internet package. Your guests used all of these services. Mom, where are you going with this? She turned to me. Sarah, according to my calculations using your fee structure, Jake's guests owe you approximately $1,847 for services rendered over 3 months. I'm sorry, what? However, she continued, Jacob's detailed records suggest this wasn't accidental hospitality. Look at this entry. Connor and Mike really liked the setup. Told them about free Wi-Fi and snacks. Should have more people wanting to stay soon. She flipped a page. Or this one, Derek's shared apartment tour online. Good advertising. Sarah doesn't watch her accounts closely, so easy to let people order food. The room went dead silent. Jake looked like he wanted to crawl under the coffee table and disappear forever. Jacob Rodriguez, his mother said in a voice that could freeze hell over, were you intentionally using your roommate's resources to subsidize a social networking scheme? It's not like that. Because this entry here says, and I quote, people are more likely to hang out and hook up if they think everything is free. Sarah's too nice to actually kick anyone out. Oh my god. He'd been using me. Not just inconsiderately letting friends crash, actually strategically using my money and resources to make himself look like some generous host so people would want to spend time with him. I stood up so fast I knocked over my water glass. You've been deliberately taking advantage of me for months. Sarah, let me explain. Explain what, Jake? That you've been using MY Netflix login and MY groceries and MY utilities as bait to get people to like you? His mom cleared her throat. There's more. This entry from last week, Dad's getting suspicious about expenses. Need to make Sarah look like the bad guy so parents don't cut off rent money. Plan, make her reaction seem crazy so I look like the victim. The room started spinning. The fake subletting agreement. The streaming setup. The sign on our door. It had all been calculated to make me look like an unstable control freak. You manipulative piece of. Enough. Mrs. Rodriguez's voice cut through my rage like a sword. Jacob, pack your belongings. You're coming home with me tonight. Mom, you can't be serious. Dead serious. Your father and I are not paying for you to run elaborate cons on innocent people. She turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sarah, I owe you a tremendous apology on behalf of my family. What my son has done is unconscionable. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. I'm also concerned that this might not be the first time Jacob has engaged in this type of manipulative behavior. Jake's face went completely white. We'll be having a much longer conversation about that at home. As I watched Jake frantically stuffing clothes into garbage bags, one thought kept running through my mind. If he'd been this calculating about everything else, what other lies had I been believing? Update 8, Jake's gone but the chaos isn't over. Wednesday evening, and I thought having Jake finally exposed and removed would bring me peace. Instead, I'm dealing with a whole new level of chaos that I definitely didn't see coming. Jake left yesterday with his mom, but not before attempting one final manipulation that almost worked. As he was packing his stuff, he kept trying to get me alone to explain everything and insist that his notebook entries were just venting and not actual plans. Sarah, you know me, he kept saying. We've been friends for years. You really think I deliberately hurt you like that? The scary part. For a few minutes, I actually started doubting what I'd seen with my own eyes. That's how good he is at this manipulation thing. Thank God his mom was there to keep me grounded in reality. But here's where things get complicated. About an hour after they left, I got a knock on my door. It was Derek and 2 other people I recognized from various nights when Jake had brought crowds home. Hey, Derek said, we heard Jake moved out and we wanted to apologize. I was immediately suspicious. Okay. Look, we had no idea he was keeping track of everything or that he was using your stuff without permission, one of the girls said. He always made it seem like you were fine with everything. We actually want to pay you back, Derek continued. Like, for real this time. Jake showed us his notebook before his mom took it, and dude, that's really messed up what he did. They handed me an envelope with $300 cash and a list of everyone who had stayed over with estimated amounts they each owed me. The list had 23 names on it. We've been reaching out to people, the other girl explained. Most people had no idea Jake was basically stealing from you to fund his social life. Everyone feels pretty terrible about it. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was relieved that people were taking responsibility, but part of me was also wondering if this was just another manipulation. Then my phone started buzzing. Text after text from numbers I didn't recognize. Hey, this is Amanda from Jake's marketing class. Derek told me what really happened. I owe you money for that night I stayed over. Can you Venmo me your info? Hi Sarah, this is Mike. I'm so sorry about everything. Jake told us you were loaded and didn't mind covering expenses. I want to pay you back for the food and utilities. Sarah. This is Brittany. I feel horrible. I had no idea Jake was scamming you. Can we meet up so I can give you cash? By evening, I'd received over $400 in Venmo payments and gotten apology texts from 15 different people. Some of them included screenshots of conversations with Jake where he'd explicitly told them things like, don't worry about bringing money, my roommate's parents pay for everything, and she actually likes having people over, she just pretends to be annoyed. But then things got weird again. Around 8 p.m., I got a call from Mrs. Rodriguez. Sarah, I need to ask you something important, she said. Have any of Jake's friends from high school or his previous roommates ever contacted you? No, why? Because I've been making some phone calls today, and I'm discovering that Jake's behavior in your apartment wasn't an isolated incident. She went on to explain that Jake's roommate from freshman year had apparently dealt with similar issues, Jake bringing people over constantly, using the roommate's meal plan and laundry money, even giving out the roommate's contact information to girls Jake was trying to impress. The boy ended up requesting a room transfer mid-semester, she said. We thought it was just a personality clash. Then she told me something that made my stomach drop. His high school girlfriend's parents apparently had to threaten legal action because Jake had been using her car and credit cards without permission, telling people he had wealthy parents who didn't mind him spending money. Mrs. Rodriguez, I said slowly, are you telling me Jake is like a habitual scammer? I'm telling you that I'm starting to think my son has a serious problem with boundaries and honesty that goes way beyond normal college stupidity. After I hung up, I sat in my finally peaceful apartment trying to process everything. The random strangers who'd invaded my space, the months of feeling crazy and mean for wanting basic respect, all of it had been part of Jake's pattern of using people. But now I'm wondering, what else don't I know? And more importantly, what's he telling people about me now that he's been caught? Update 9, the social media nightmare and Jake's counterattack. Thursday morning, and I woke up to discover that Jake's been busy. Very, very busy. I should have known his silence since leaving with his mom was too good to be true. At 6 a.m., my phone started exploding with notifications, tags, mentions, DMs, and texts from people I hadn't heard from in months. Turns out Jake spent all of yesterday crafting what can only be described as a masterpiece of manipulation on social media. He posted a multi-part story across Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat titled, My Toxic Roommate Destroyed My Life, the real story. In it, he paints himself as the victim of a financially abusive roommate, me, who extorted money from his friends and created a hostile environment that triggered his anxiety and depression. He conveniently left out the part about his detailed tracking notebook or his mom's audit, instead focusing on how I humiliated his guests and forced him to move back home. But the worst part? He included screenshots of our private text conversations, edited and taken completely out of context. There's one where I texted him, I don't want your random hookups eating my food, that he cropped to just show, I don't want your friends here, making me look completely antisocial. Another screenshot shows me saying, charge them or I'm calling the cops, but cuts out the part where I was talking about people literally live streaming our address to strangers on the internet. The comments are brutal. People calling me everything from psycho roommate from hell to money-obsessed control freak. Someone even made a meme out of my laminated price list. But here's where Jake made a crucial mistake. He got cocky and posted everything publicly instead of just sending it to his friend groups. By 9 a.m., Derek had sent me screenshots with a message, yo, this is not what happened and everyone knows it. Jake's story doesn't match what we all saw. Then Brittany posted her own response video, actually, I was there for most of this drama and Jake is straight up lying. Here's what really happened. She proceeded to expose how Jake had told different people different stories about our living situation and how his notebook proved everything was calculated. Other people started chiming in with their own experiences. Amanda from his marketing class revealed that Jake had asked her to lie to his parents about why he needed extra money. Mike posted screenshots of Jake literally coaching him on how to get free stuff from my roommate without her noticing. The tide started turning, but Jake wasn't done. Around noon, I got a call from campus security. Apparently, Jake had filed a complaint claiming I was harassing his friends and demanding money from students under false pretenses. He'd submitted my price list as evidence of me running an illegal business out of our apartment. I had to spend 2 hours in a security office explaining the entire situation while they fact-checked everything with Mrs. Chen and even called Jake's mom for her side of the story. The security officer, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, finally said, honey, this boy has issues. But unfortunately, he's not breaking any laws by being a manipulative little weasel. Then things got really scary. At 4 p.m., I came home to find someone had been in my apartment. Nothing was missing, but things were slightly off, drawers not quite closed all the way, my laptop moved from where I'd left it, papers shuffled through. Jake still has a key. I immediately called Mrs. Chen, who said she'd get the locks changed tomorrow, but that means tonight I'm either staying somewhere else or sleeping in an apartment that Jake can access whenever he wants. I've been getting anonymous messages all day, some supportive, some threatening. One person sent me Jake's current location, his parents' house, with the message, want me to handle this for you, which was both helpful and terrifying. Another message just said, this isn't over. You ruined everything. I don't know if that's from Jake or one of his supporters, but either way, I'm not sleeping here tonight. The worst part? I can't shake the feeling that Jake's been planning this nuclear option for a while, and I have no idea what his next move is going to be. Update 10, the break-in aftermath and Jake's biggest mistake. Friday night, and I'm writing this from my friend Lisa's dorm because the situation has officially escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. I ended up staying at Lisa's last night after the break-in scare, but I had to go back this morning to meet Mrs. Chen for the lock change. What I found when I walked in made my blood run cold. My laptop was open to my email account, still logged in. My desk drawers were completely rifled through, and worst of all, my financial documents were scattered across my bed. Bank statements, my work schedule, even my student loan paperwork. Someone had been looking for something specific. But here's the really messed up part, Jake had left a note. Actually left a note. It was sitting on my pillow like some kind of psychotic calling card. Sarah, just getting my stuff that you probably hid. Don't try to make this into something it's not. You're already in enough trouble. Jay. The gaslighting was so blatant it was almost impressive. He'd literally broken into our apartment to go through my personal information, but somehow I'm the one who's in trouble. Mrs. Chen took one look at the scene and immediately called the police. Apparently breaking and entering is still illegal even if you used to live there. Who knew? While we were waiting for the cops, Mrs. Chen started asking questions that made me realize Jake's manipulation had gone even deeper than I thought. Sarah, she said carefully, Jake's father called me yesterday asking about discrepancies in the utility bills. He seemed to think you've been inflating the costs. What do you mean? She showed me copies of our monthly utility statements going back 6 months. According to Mr. Rodriguez, Jake told his parents that you've been charging him extra for utilities that you don't actually pay. I stared at the papers, confused. Our utilities aren't even that high, maybe $80 to $100 per month total. Jake's been telling his parents he pays $300 a month for his share of utilities, she continued. His father wanted to confirm the actual amounts because it seemed excessive. The realization hit me like a truck. He's been scamming his own parents. It appears so. The question is, what was he doing with the extra money? When the police arrived, the officer, a young guy who looked barely older than me, started asking routine questions about the break-in. But when I mentioned Jake's social media campaign and the pattern of manipulation, his demeanor completely changed. Ma'am, can you walk me through this roommate situation one more time? Because what you're describing sounds like it might be part of a larger pattern. I spent the next hour explaining everything, the notebook, the tracking, the scams, his parents' discoveries. The officer kept taking notes and asking follow-up questions that suggested this was more serious than just a roommate dispute. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. We've actually had a couple of other reports this week about a male college student running various scams on campus. Different complaints, but some similar patterns. Can you describe your roommate's appearance? After I gave Jake's description, the officer made a phone call that I couldn't quite hear. When he came back, his expression was grim. Miss, I need to ask you something important. Did your roommate ever have access to your student ID, meal plan, or any university accounts? Well, yeah, we'd sometimes borrow each other's meal swipes if one of us ran out. And did he ever ask to use your student login for anything? Library access, printing, anything like that? My heart started racing. He used my printing account sometimes because his was always out of money. The officer exchanged a look with Mrs. Chen that I didn't like at all. Miss Thompson, I think you need to check your university account balance. Tonight. As I'm typing this from Lisa's laptop, I'm afraid to log into my student portal. If Jake's been using my accounts for whatever scam he's apparently been running campus-wide, I could be in serious academic trouble. And the scariest part? I have no idea how many other people he's been manipulating or what he might have done using my information. This is so much bigger than just charging people to crash at our apartment. Update 11, the campus-wide scam network in my academic nightmare. Saturday evening, and I've spent the last 24 hours discovering that Jake wasn't just a manipulative roommate, he was apparently running a sophisticated fraud operation using multiple students' accounts, and I was his primary victim. When I finally worked up the courage to check my university portal Friday night, I found a horror show. My meal plan balance, which should have had about $400 left for the semester, was completely drained. My printing account showed $347 in charges over the past month. But the worst part was my library account. Someone had been using my login to reserve private study rooms and group spaces, then subletting them to other students for cash. Lisa and I spent all of Friday night screenshotting everything before I called campus security first thing Saturday morning. The officer I spoke to, Detective Morrison, asked me to come in immediately and bring all my documentation. What I learned in that meeting made my skin crawl. Miss Thompson, Detective Morrison said, spreading out a folder full of complaints, your roommate has been busy. We have reports from 7 different students about various money schemes, unauthorized account usage, and identity theft. She showed me complaint after complaint. Jake had been using another student's parking pass to sell temporary parking spots. He'd convinced someone in his economics class to let him use their campus job login, then had random people clock in under that student's name and split the wages. He'd even been taking students' credit cards to pick up food orders and making additional purchases. The meal plan scam was apparently his biggest operation, she continued. We estimate he drained account balances from at least 12 students, telling each of them that the system was glitched and their missing money was a technical error that would be fixed soon. My stomach turned. How much money are we talking about? Conservatively. About $4,000 over 2 months. But that's just what we can document so far. She pulled out a notebook that looked familiar. We found this in his dorm room when we searched it yesterday. It was another tracking notebook, but this one was full of information about dozens of students. Account passwords, work schedules, class timetables, even personal information like family financial situations and social security numbers. Jake had detailed profiles on 43 different students, Detective Morrison explained. Including psychological notes about who was most likely to trust him, who wouldn't notice missing money, and who had wealthy parents he could potentially exploit. There was a whole section about me. 3 pages of notes detailing my habits, my accounts, my schedule, even observations about my conflict avoidance tendencies, and how I was too polite to verify charges. But the entry that made me physically sick was dated from last month, Sarah getting suspicious about apartment stuff. Need to escalate other operations before she figures out account access. Parents' info in her financial documents, possible target for identity theft if she becomes problem. Miss Thompson, Detective Morrison said gently, we need you to check your credit report immediately. And we need you to contact your parents about any unusual financial activity. My hands were shaking as I called my mom. Hey honey, she answered cheerfully. Perfect timing, I was just about to call you about that credit card application. My blood turned to ice. What credit card application? The one for the emergency card. Jake called us last week saying you were having trouble with your bank account and needed us to co-sign for a temporary credit line. Your dad and I were surprised you didn't mention it, but Jake said you were embarrassed about asking for help. I closed my eyes. Mom, please tell me you didn't give him any information. Well, he already knew our address and phone number, and he said he was calling from your phone because yours was broken. We gave him the social security numbers for the application, but we didn't sign anything yet. Why? Sarah, what's wrong? Detective Morrison was already pulling out forms for identity theft reporting. But here's the most terrifying part, when they searched Jake's room, they found printed copies of documents from my laptop. Bank statements, student loan information, even photos of my driver's license and social security card that he must have taken when he broke in. Miss Thompson, Detective Morrison said, your roommate wasn't just running scams for spending money. Based on the evidence we found, he was building toward full identity theft. The apartment situation was just the beginning. As I'm writing this, campus police are coordinating with actual FBI agents because Jake's operation apparently crossed state lines when he started targeting students' families. And the scariest part? He's still out there, and now he knows that we're onto him. My phone has been buzzing all day with calls from unknown numbers. Some are from other victims reaching out, but others, I'm not so sure. One voicemail just said, "You should have minded your own business, Sarah." Update 12, the FBI gets involved and Jake's family turns on him. Sunday night, and my life has officially become a crime drama that I never auditioned for. This morning I woke up to Detective Morrison calling at 7 a.m. asking if I could come in urgently to meet with federal agents. Apparently Jake's little campus operation was connected to something much bigger, and they needed my help to understand the full scope. The FBI agents, Agent Chen and Agent Rodriguez, no relation to Jake's family, thankfully, had taken over a conference room in the campus security building. The table was covered with printouts, laptops, and evidence bags that made my stomach turn. "Miss Thompson," Agent Chen began, "we've been tracking a multi-state identity theft ring that targets college students and their families. Your roommate appears to be a significant player in this network." She showed me screenshots of online forums where Jake had been selling students' personal information to other scammers. My information was listed in multiple posts with titles like "Clean Credit," "Wealthy Parents," "Easy Mark," and "Full Financial Portfolio, Family Owns Business." "The going rate for a complete identity package like yours is about $2,000, Agent Rodriguez explained. "But your roommate was also running something called a long-term infiltration scheme where he would establish trust with targets over months before extracting maximum value." They had records of Jake communicating with other scammers about roommate operations at universities across 3 different states. Apparently, getting close to students through housing arrangements was a common tactic in this network. But here's where things got really twisted. They found evidence that Jake had been planning this since before we even became roommates. There were messages from last year where he discussed targeting the business major with family money and setting up the perfect cover story. Our entire friendship had been a lie from day one. "The strangers he brought to your apartment," Agent Chen continued, "we believe some of them were other members of this network. They were likely documenting your living space, photographing documents, and gathering intelligence for future operations." I thought back to all those random people Jake had brought home, how some of them had seemed oddly interested in asking me personal questions about my family, my job, my plans after college. It hadn't been casual conversation, it had been data collection. Then Agent Rodriguez dropped the real bombshell. "Miss Thompson, we have reason to believe your roommate's network was preparing to target your family's business directly. We found detailed research about your parents' company, including employee information and financial records. My dad owns a small construction business back home. Nothing huge, but successful enough that we've never struggled financially. The thought of Jake and his criminal friends targeting my family made me want to throw up. We need your permission to monitor your communications and potentially use you as a cooperating witness," Agent Chen said. "Your roommate doesn't know yet that we've discovered the full extent of his operation." That's when my phone rang. It was Mrs. Rodriguez, Jake's mom. "Sarah, thank God you answered," she said, and she sounded like she'd been crying. "I need to tell you something important. Jake's father and I have been going through his things since he came home, and we found evidence that he's been stealing from us too. Apparently, Jake had been using their credit cards for school expenses while telling them the charges were for things like textbooks and lab fees. In reality, he'd been funding his scam operation and buying equipment for identity theft. We found a storage unit," Mrs. Rodriguez continued, her voice shaking. "Boxes of fake IDs, credit cards, even equipment for making counterfeit documents. Sarah, our son isn't just a manipulative college student. He's a criminal." She was calling because Jake's parents were cooperating with the FBI and had agreed to help gather evidence. But they'd also discovered something that made my blood run cold. "He has a list of targets for this summer," she said. "Students he plans to visit under the pretense of maintaining friendships. Your name is at the top of that list. As I'm writing this, there's an FBI agent parked outside Lisa's dorm and another one monitoring my parents' house back home. Jake's network apparently doesn't take kindly to people who expose their operations, and they consider me a high-priority threat now. The craziest part? I still have 3 finals to take this week, and I'm supposed to be graduating in 2 weeks. But first, I have to help the FBI catch my former best friend and his criminal network before they destroy more lives." Update 13, Jake's desperate gambit and the security breach. Tuesday morning, and what I thought was the peak of this nightmare has somehow gotten exponentially worse. I was in the middle of my corporate finance final yesterday when campus security pulled me out of the exam. Agent Chen was waiting in the hallway with an expression that made my stomach drop before she even spoke. "Sarah, we have a problem. Jake's not at his parents' house anymore." Apparently, Jake had convinced his parents he needed to turn himself in properly and asked them to drive him to the local FBI field office. But instead of going inside, he bolted from the car in the parking lot and disappeared into downtown traffic. "We think he panicked when he realized his parents were cooperating with us," Agent Rodriguez explained when I met with them an hour later. "But we're also concerned this might be part of a larger escape plan." That concern turned out to be justified. Around 6 p.m., I got a call from my mom that made my hands shake so hard I could barely hold the phone. "Honey," she said, trying to sound calm but failing completely, "there's been someone watching our house. Your dad noticed the same car parked across the street for 3 days, and this morning someone tried to break into his office. My dad's construction business operates out of a small office complex about 10 minutes from their house. Nothing was taken, but the filing cabinets had been rifled through and someone had tried to access his computer. The police think they were looking for client information and financial records," Mom continued. "Sarah, what exactly has your roommate gotten involved in?" Before I could answer, Agent Chen was gesturing frantically at me. She'd gotten a call that made her face go white. "We need to move you immediately," she said as soon as I hung up. Jake made contact with his network. We intercepted communications indicating they're planning to accelerate their timeline. She showed me printed screenshots of encrypted messages that the FBI had somehow accessed. Jake's messages to someone called Phoenix were terrifying. "Target compromised operation. Need immediate extraction and cleanup protocol. High-value family business still accessible if we move fast. Roommate has evidence but doesn't understand full scope yet." The response was even worse, "Understood. Initiating containment procedures." Eliminate information leak and secure primary assets. Timeline moved to 48 hours. Miss Thompson, Agent Rodriguez said grimly, "We believe containment procedures means they're planning to silence witnesses, and primary assets refers to your family's business information." That's when my phone started buzzing with text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. "Sarah, this is Amanda from Jake's marketing class. Someone broke into my dorm room last night. They took my laptop and went through all my papers. The police said you might know why. Hey, it's Derek. My car got broken into and they only took things with my personal info. Bank statements, insurance cards. This is connected to Jake, isn't it? Sarah. This is Brittany. Someone called my parents pretending to be from the university asking for my social security number for financial aid verification. My mom almost gave it to them." Jake's network was systematically targeting everyone who had spoken out against him or provided evidence to the FBI. They weren't just trying to escape, they were trying to destroy anyone who could testify about their operations. But then things took an even more sinister turn. At 9 p.m., I got a call from Mrs. Rodriguez that made me realize Jake's desperation had reached psychotic levels. "Sarah," she whispered, "Jake came home. But he's not acting like himself. He's been searching through our house looking for something, and when I asked him what, he said he needed to fix the Sarah problem permanently. She was hiding in her bedroom while calling me. He doesn't know I'm cooperating with the FBI. But Sarah, I found something in his bag. Zip ties, duct tape, and printed directions to your parents' address." My blood turned to ice. "He's not just running from the law," she continued, her voice barely audible. "I think he's planning to take hostages." Agent Chen was already on her radio calling for immediate protection details for my family and emergency response teams. But as I watched agents scrambling to coordinate a multi-state operation, one thought kept haunting me: Jake had always been 3 steps ahead of everyone else. What if this was exactly what he wanted us to think? Final update: the takedown and justice served. Wednesday night, and I'm finally writing this from my own apartment, with new locks, a security system, and the knowledge that Jake Rodriguez is sitting in federal custody facing charges that will put him away for a very long time. The end came faster than anyone expected, and it was Jake's own arrogance that brought him down. While the FBI was coordinating protection details for my family yesterday, Jake made his biggest mistake yet. Instead of disappearing into whatever criminal network had been supporting him, he decided he needed to tie up loose ends, personally. At 3 a.m. this morning, my new security system woke me up. Someone was trying to break into my apartment again. But this time, Agent Chen's team was ready. I watched from Lisa's dorm room via the security camera feed as Jake used some kind of electronic device to bypass my new locks. He'd clearly upgraded his criminal toolkit since our last encounter. What he didn't know was that the FBI had been monitoring the apartment since Monday, hoping he'd be stupid enough to show up. The camera captured everything. Jake systematically going through my belongings, photographing documents, and downloading files from my laptop onto a USB drive. But the most damning evidence came when he called someone on speakerphone. "Phoenix, I'm in the target's apartment now," Jake said, apparently feeling confident enough to discuss his crimes out loud. "I've got all her family's business information, social security numbers, the works. We can clean out their accounts and disappear before anyone realizes what happened." The voice on the other end, which turned out to belong to a wanted fugitive named Marcus Torres, laid out a plan that involved identity theft, wire fraud, and what sounded like kidnapping my parents to force them to transfer money from their business accounts. "And the roommate?" Torres asked. Jake's response made my blood run cold. "I'll handle her personally. She's caused enough problems." That's when Agent Chen's team moved in. The arrest was swift and brutal. Jake went from criminal mastermind to crying college student in about 30 seconds when he realized he was surrounded by federal agents with guns drawn. But the real victory came when they searched his backpack. Along with zip ties and printed maps to my parents' house, they found detailed plans for targeting 12 other students across 3 universities, over $40,000 in cash and prepaid credit cards, and a laptop containing evidence of the entire criminal network. "Your roommate kept meticulous records of everything," Agent Rodriguez told me later. "His need to document and control every aspect of his schemes is what gave us enough evidence to roll up the entire operation." By noon Wednesday, they'd arrested 6 other people in 4 different states. The FBI recovered over $200,000 in stolen funds and prevented what could have been dozens more identity theft cases. Jake's parents came to see me yesterday afternoon. Mrs. Rodriguez was still crying, but she handed me an envelope with $3,000 cash. "It's not enough to undo what he did," she said, "but it's everything we can spare right now. We're selling our house to pay back his other victims." "You don't have to." "Yes, we do. We raised him, and somehow we failed to see what he was becoming. Every person he hurt is partially our responsibility." The weirdest part: some of Jake's victims have become my closest friends. Derek, Brittany, Amanda, and I have formed what we jokingly call the Survivors of Jake Club. We're all testifying at his trial, which should happen sometime next year. As for Jake himself, he's facing federal charges for identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy, and about a dozen other crimes I can't even pronounce. His lawyer is trying to claim he was just a college student who got in over his head, but the evidence says otherwise. The FBI estimates Jake's network stole over $500,000 from students and their families. Some victims lost their entire college savings. Others had their credit destroyed for years. But here's the thing I keep coming back to: it all started because I charged people $25 to sleep on my couch. Sometimes standing up for yourself, even in small ways, can expose much bigger problems than you ever imagined. I graduate next week, and I'm moving back home for a while. My parents want me close while the legal proceedings wrap up, and honestly, I could use some time in a place where my roommate isn't running a criminal enterprise. The apartment is quiet now. Peaceful, even. And for the first time in months, I can walk to my kitchen in my pajamas without worrying about strangers. It's amazing how good normal feels after everything we've been through. Update: Jake Rodriguez was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $847,000 in restitution to his victims. The judge called it one of the most sophisticated and callous schemes targeting young people she'd ever seen, ***. As for me, I'm doing great. Turns out all that drama was excellent preparation for law school. Apparently, I have a talent for building cases against criminals, ***. Some stories do have happy endings.